So we're talking about the Vital Brooklyn Green Job Training Grant, which is the ID of DEC 01 EJVB for Environmental Justice, Vital Brooklyn 2017. That's when the money was made available, I believe. And this obviously is a grant application webinar. So some key dates you should know about. Again, I mentioned the ID that you'll be using in the Grants Gateway EJVB. You'll be searching for it, and I'll be searching for it when I log in under Vital Brooklyn Green Job Training. And note it's green job, singular, not plural. If you search for the word jobs, you won't find it. The application deadline is on a Friday. It's July 20th at 3 p.m. Questions are due by close of business on Friday, July 13th, so a week prior to that. Questions, not noted here, but the answers to questions will be posted on the Gateway on a kind of continual basis. So as questions get in, they'll get a group of questions, they'll post them. If they get more, they'll post them. And then the final questions, they won't allow any more questions until after, they won't allow any more questions after July 13th by the end of the day. So the way questions and answers works is that they're posted for everybody to see all the questions and all the answers. All right, a couple program highlights. So the idea behind this grant is to promote health and environmental improvement in Central Brooklyn. So this RFA seeks proposals for job training programs in the green jobs sector. So some examples of fields within the green jobs sector are clean energy, green infrastructure, and urban agriculture. These will be 2-year contracts or up to 2-year contracts, and the contract terms are November 2nd, 2018 through November 1st, 2020. So you can ask for a minimum of $25,000 or a maximum of $50,000, and that's for the full 2 years. That's not per year. So the max you can ask for this grant is $50,000. So if you do have questions about the program itself or things about, is your program eligible or is this type of thing eligible, you can contact by email or phone the Office of Environmental Justice. So you can see justice@dec.ny.gov is the email address. They want you to include the words Vital Brooklyn Green Job Training. Looks like I missed an end quote there in the subject of the email. Again, questions regarding the opportunity will be accepted until close of business on July 13th, and then all questions and answers will be uploaded to the Grants Gateway for all applicants to view. And I'll show you where that would be once we get into the Gateway. There's also technical assistance available to you from the help desk, the Grants Gateway help desk. So if you're stuck on a username or how do I do this thing or where can I find this, or registration or pre-qualification, you can talk to the Grants Gateway help desk. We have a website, grantsreform.ny.gov, and on the Grantees tab there, you can get information about how to apply, how to register, how to work on your document vault. So there's resources there for that, manuals and videos. And there's also email help and phone help. So Grants Gateway at its.ny.gov, and then this phone number, 518-474-5595. There's a couple other webinars that we offer on a regular basis on the training calendar. You can find that there on the Grantees tab as well. There's a webinar about pre-qualification if you need to work on getting pre-qualified, which we'll talk about in a minute. So first of all is registration. You may be registered already in the Grants Gateway, and if you are, that's fine, and you can get moving by applying. But if you're not, that's the first step. So all entities that wish to apply for grants in the Grants Gateway must be registered in the Grants Gateway. So that process includes filing out a form and physically mailing it, a signed and notarized form, into our office here in Albany. And we ask you to register as early as you can because it could take up to a week to get registered once your paperwork is received. Usually we can do it in a matter of minutes once we open up the mail, but sometimes if you don't have an SFS vendor ID, a statewide financial system, we won't be able to get you an account until that's created. That takes sometimes 2-3 days. So register early. Don't wait until July 15th to get moving on this. Do it as soon as you can. Again, there's information in the Grants Gateway, in the Grants Reform website. for registration. I'll point that out in a little while, and on the Grants Gateway itself and the Grant Opportunity Portal, which I'll point out. So I did mention a minute ago pre-qualification, and that is important. If you are a not-for-profit, all entities or all nonprofit organizations must be pre-qualified in the Grants Gateway prior to the grant application due date, or at the time and date that it's due. So in your case, if the application is due at 3 p.m. on July 20th, that's when you must be pre-qualified for. So again, there's information on the Grants Reform website for pre-qualification. Pre-qualification is basically the act of providing us documents and filling out forms that prove you have policies and procedures in place that show basically you're a well-run not-for-profit. You're doing things that are best practices for not-for-profits, and you need to provide us with, depending on the size of your organization, your IRS 990, your charities registration, and an audit of previous years. So that's something that you have to do in the Grants Gateway by, again, filling out forms and providing some documents to us, uploading them. The pre-qualification process could take, several hours or several days over several days or weeks, with you getting information together, sending it in to get reviewed, and it getting approved. So again, another one of those things, don't wait until the last minute to get started on it. Do it as soon as you can. So you need to be in the status of pre-qualified or pre-qualified open when the applications are due at 3 o'clock on July 20th. All right, another thing about the Grants Gateway that you need to be familiar with is the grantee user roles. So it's a role-based system, meaning you have an account and that account has a role, and when you log in under that account, you're allowed to do certain things that that role can do. So you might need to have different roles because you might want to do different things in the gateway on behalf of your organization. So the first person that would get set up when you register is this person down here in the bottom left, the Grantee Delegated Administrator. So what we do on the registration form, we ask for name or two names of people that you want to get registered as a delegated admin. Those people can manage the Grants Gateway users, so that you can see they can add or edit user accounts, and they can manage pre-qualification. They can add and upload information for pre-qualification and submit it. So you have no choice in having one of these types of users in the system because we create them for you when we get your registration form. But after that, it's up to this delegated admin to figure out who gets accounts in the system for you. So they can add somebody in the role of grantee up in the top left here. And that person can start and save an application, edit application information, but they can't submit it. So when that due date comes, if you only have the grantee role, you're not going to be able to submit the application to us. To do that, you need somebody here on the right, the grantee contract signatory or the grantee system administrator. These people can both do all the things that the grantee can do, edit an application, start an application, save it, and they can submit it. They can sign it and submit the application before the due date. So you need somebody at least in the role of grantee contract signatory or grantee system administrator to submit the application. If you want to have somebody in the role of grantee, that's fine. Maybe you have a grants writer where you have two different people working on it, one that works on it and the other that submits it, that's fine. But you definitely need to have somebody in the role of signatory or system administrator so they can submit it before that due date. So again, delegated admin is the first person we set up for you, and then that person sets up everybody else depending on how you want your organization set up. So this page just kind of highlights what I just said. Remember, the grantee delegated admin can add new accounts and work in the vault, but can't edit applications or work on them. At the very least, you need to have somebody in that grantee contract signatory role or grantee system administrator. User in the role of grantee can start and edit the application, but cannot submit it. And then the last point, it certainly is acceptable for one person to have multiple roles and thus multiple accounts. So, you might be a small organization and you might be the grantee delegated admin and the contract signatory. That's fine, you just need to have two accounts. And in that case, we're fine with if you use the same email address, the same password if you want. That's up to you how you manage that. Okay, so what are the next steps here? So what you're going to do is if you're not registered, you got to obviously get started on that. Make sure your organization is registered in the Grants Gateway by filling out the form and submitting it to us. If you're a not-for-profit, which this grant is only for not-for-profits, so you will be, make sure that you are pre-qualified or at least work on pre-qualification before July 20th. When I say at least work on it, you don't have to be pre-qualified right now. You can start your application and start pre-qualification at the same time. They just both have to be ready by that due date and time. So another step that you would do is make sure you have people in the right roles, someone who can start an application and submit the application. I certainly suggest downloading and reading the RFA in its entirety. There's a lot of information in there. It's only 30-something pages, I believe, and I'll look at it in a few minutes. But that's what you really need as guidance to go through this. And it'll actually give you how you're graded, how applications are scored, which will give you a good idea of, how you should be answering questions. It also gets into the budget details, which you may have questions about it that are already answered in the RFA. So again, if you have questions, submit them to the email address, justice@dec.ny.gov. And like I said, start your applications sooner the better and submit them prior to the deadline. At 3 o'clock on that date, it's over. There's no more applications accepted. The system just shuts it down. So, we say try to do it 28 or even 48 hours in advance, because you'll see as I go through, if you didn't realize you missed an important section, it won't let you submit your application unless it's all done. So the system knows you have an incomplete application and won't let you submit it. So just to remind you, you can start and work on your application even if you aren't yet pre-qualified. You can be working on both things at the same time, and that's perfectly fine. Just make sure both are taken care of before that due date. First of all, just quickly point out that grants reform website that I talked about. The grants reform is at grantsreform.ny.gov, and I talked about the Grantees tab here. So if you click on the Grantees tab, we've got training and documents and information related to pre-qual and registering and applying. Pre-qualification manual is down here on the bottom left here. The Grantee user guide is up here in the top left. And I wanted to mention the registration form. That's this right here, registration form for administrator. That's where you get started if you haven't already. There's also a few videos here in the videos tab. One of them is for pre-qualification right here. So registration, pre-qualification. Apply for funding is pretty old, and we're doing it here, so there's no point in looking at that one. Probably no point in it. But we're going to go now to the Grants Gateway, and that's at grantsgateway.ny.gov. You can see the address up here in the top. So if you just click on grantsgateway.ny.gov, it'll bring you there. One thing I'd like to point out to everybody, because it seems like some people are in the habit of doing this, typing in www. If you were to type www.grantsgateway.ny.gov, you get an error saying that the site is not secure. And it would let you go onto the page if you wanted to, depending on what browser you're in, but it's not secure. So that's not saying that we don't have a secure website, it's just that we don't if you use www. So you have to just go to https://grantsgateway.ny.gov. Easiest way is just type grantsgateway.ny.gov in your address bar. It's just the way the state works. The state, all of our secure websites aren't secure under www for whatever reason. That registration form is here on the gateway as well. So I went to the gateway and I did not log in yet, so I'm brought to the portal here. And I can go and register by clicking on Request Access Now, and I can fill out the registration form. If I don't have an SFS vendor ID, you also have to fill out the Substitute W-9 form. So they're both just one-pagers that you can quickly fill out, but you do need to get the registration form notarized, and you have to send them in via mail. That was registration. I'll just point out notification if you wanted to sign up to be alerted of any grants that come out in the future. For instance, if you had environmental supports, you could fill out your name and email address and sign up, and you'll get an email every time a new grant opportunity is posted. But what we're going to do is search for this grant opportunity. So we're not going to apply yet, because remember, I haven't even logged in. But if you need to find the RFA and you need to know information about it, you can go to search and search for instance, green job. And hit search, and we found Vital Brooklyn Green Job Training. So you could search for Vital Brooklyn, you could search for Brooklyn, and you'll find it. So you don't have to narrow it down because there's not too many things out there. If I search for the word Brooklyn, there might be one other out there. There's a few, but you can see only one is clickable, and that's the one for DEC. So Vital Brooklyn Green Job Training, it's available. You have to be a not-for-profit to apply for it. We know that it's available as of April 26th, and we know that it's due on July 20th. So if we click on that, you can get a few more, you can get a little more information about it. There's that ID that I talked about in the PowerPoint, EJVB. So your application number will be DEC01 EJVB-2017- a 5-digit number. So the first person that submits an application will be 00001 and so on. Agency we know, Department of Environmental Conservation. The name we know, Vital Brooklyn. Contact name, that email address that I showed before, justice@dec.ny.gov. The profile talks about, kind of basics of it. Talks about how to, who to email. We'll click this button in a minute. And on the right is a few other kind of optional details. So again, July 20th at 3 o'clock, that's not optional, 24-month contracts. Again, $25,000 to $50,000. There's $250,000 total available. Letter of intent is not required. We talked about the Q&A. When the Q&A is posted, it'll be posted right here. So you can always come back to here, and we went to the portal, and we searched for, Brooklyn or Vital Brooklyn or whatever, and we found it. You can always come back here and see, not there, here, the link to the questions and answers document once they're uploaded. So it would be important to kind of check back there regularly just to see if your questions have been answered or what else is out there. Again, we know not-for-profits can apply, who is it targeted to, and that service area. This is what drives that email. So again, if you had checked on environmental supports to be notified, you would have received this when we posted it on April 26th. Okay, so the last thing here, though, is this View Grant Opportunity, and what it is actually a link to the RFA. So I'm going to open it up, and we'll look at it for a few minutes. Again, it's 31 pages. You should definitely go through it all before you get started. I'm going to just point out some highlights. Again, we know the dates and the ID. A nice table of contents that's clickable if you want to get to something. So the timetable we looked at, registration, pre-qualification, information about funding, time frames. We talked about the max and minimum amounts, number of applications that are allowed. They allow for multiple applications, but only one will be awarded per organization. So we were just talking about project locations. If we look at eligible project locations, these projects for grant funding must be located in the assembly districts listed below. There's also a map of the districts provided to you to let you know what's what. But you can see you're going to have to pick one of these. So when we apply, you'll see that we'll have to do that. You're also going to have to provide the exact street locations where the project is to be implemented. All right, so I'm going to go back to the table of contents. That was the locations. Ellen, I see you have a question. Hang on there. Or feel free to type it in chat if you want. Then it gets into the details of applying. So it's an expenditure-based budget. Talks about the work plan. So let's click on that. So these are itemized budgets in the gateway, and I'll go in and I'll fill one out when we get into it. It talks about eligible and ineligible costs. Project's reasonableness of costs at least is worth 20% of the evaluation factor in scoring. Work plan talks about, so you have objectives, tasks, and performance measures, and we provide you a worksheet to kind of work it out on paper before you put it into the gateway if you'd like. So you have to have goals in mind, and how are you going to measure that you've accomplished those goals? You want to train X number of people. You want to have, some some number of people placed into green jobs or something like that. We talked about the, we didn't talk about, but alignment with regional economic development councils, REDCs. So there's a website for New York State called Regional Councils, .ny.gov, and you should be aligned with the regional economic council priorities as well. So again, more things to go through there. I'm going to skip back to the table of contents and go to the expenditures, which is on page 17. So this talks about what you need to provide in the budget, and it obviously needs to be a complete and detailed budget, which I won't do in my test. Mine will not be really detailed, but it'll give you guidelines of how to do it yourself. So we allow for salary, for fringe benefits, for contractual equipment, curriculum development that would go under contractual or personal services. So if you have an employee that's providing this, that would go under personal services. But if you're outsourcing it to a contractor, that would go under contractual. Recruitment, education, training, again, probably under contractual if you're hiring some outside consultant. Support services, so things like transportation, child care, dependent care, you know, those types of things could be covered as well, only up to a max of 5% of the support services. Placement retention, travel, supplies, and even grant administration costs, if you need, can be covered up to 10% of the total grant. So if you ask for $50,000, you can't say you have $10,000 worth of grant administration. That won't be covered. It has to be 5%, 10% of it, which would be $5,000. Talks about some ineligible project costs as well. So obviously you want to stay away from those. All right, it talks about how to, what to expect if you receive an award, how contracts are made, and as we go through here, talks about MWBE that you would deal with later. Here's those appendixes. So here's the different districts, points them out, starting on page 23 and ending on page 31 there. So you can see if you were unclear as to what district you're in, the map should be able to help you out. All right, so remember, I was in the portal. To actually get in to start applying, you would have to go to log in and log in. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here so it looks a little better. Now, I'm not going to log in here in our live site, so let me go into our test site, which is right here. And I'm going to log in as somebody named Barbara Signatory. So she is a grantee contract signatory, which means, of course, she can start an application, edit that application, save it, and submit it. So just a quick highlight of kind of an overview of the layout of the Grants Gateway. The top I would refer to as search buttons. So home obviously brings you home. Portal, we just saw the portal. You don't have to be logged in to view the portal. You could search for applications, contracts, payments, or tasks or progress reports for your organization. So if Barbara comes in and starts this application today, and then somebody in your organization wants to look at it or work on it, they could go to applications and search for it. They could search in the word Brooklyn or Vital. Same deal with contracts. If you put in an application, it gets approved, you get awarded, a contract gets developed, you could search for a contract here as well. Payments, the Grants Gateway handles payments once you have a contract. Progress reports is monthly reports that comes in after quarterly or monthly reports that you can handle in the gateway. And tasks are with contract development. You might get a task to update something or sign something. All right, so that is the top bar there. The black bar is kind of reference, training materials, links to some training materials. Your organization, that's where your delegated admin would click to go and set up users in your account. Profile is your personal profile. You could change your password if you need to, or your phone number or whatever. Log out, obviously, would log you out. The blue bar is like an action bar. Right now, all we see is help, and there's the link to the website or to the help desk. But up here, you'll have the save button and some other options as we go through. So you've got two options here. Some people have three. The first one is view opportunities, which is what we're going to do. This is what you do to see what's available and to apply. Your inbox, you can ignore the inbox. All it is a copy of any emails you might have received from the system. You can't actually do anything with it. It's just looking at it, so you can ignore it. And the third thing that some people might have, and you'll see Barbara will in a little while, is any tasks. So once she starts the application, that'll become a task for her that she can come back to at any time and work on. And it'll be available there in the tasks on the bottom. So what you're going to do is you're going to log in as a contract signatory, a grantee, or a system administrator, and go to View Opportunities and search for Vital Brooklyn. Okay, so I'll just search for their Vital, and I can see, oh, there it is, Vital Brooklyn Green Job Training. That's the same thing we looked at. I can click on it. I can see that same page that we saw already, except the button here is now not View Opportunity, but Apply for it. So I'll click on Apply. And now I'm applicant number 2, so this is my application has been started now. So I'm brought to the application main page. All right, and like I said, it's now a task for Barbara. So if I log out and I come back another day, I can see I now have my tasks on the home page. So I went home and I see open, I click on Open Tasks, and there it is, application number 2 that I started on 5/1. I can click on it and get back where I was. So you can do this at any time. You can save any page, and as you go through the system, you can come back whenever you want and see it in your tasks, if you were the one that started it. If you were not the one that started it and you don't have a task, you could go to Applications now and search for the application name, the number. So if I did 0002, I would find it. If I typed in the word Brooklyn here, I would find it, and I can click on it and get back into it. So once you've started it, to get back into it, it might be a task on your home page, or you can certainly search for it under Applications. But let's start filling it out now. You can see this main page doesn't have any information yet. I haven't given it a title or funds or project cost yet. All that's done here in this Forms menu. So the buttons are Menu, brings you back to this main page. Forms menu are all the forms that you need to fill out and information you need to provide. That's your application. Status changes, eventually we'll go in and submit it. So we would apply that status to submit it. Management tools, I could check for errors where it looks to see if there's anything I've missed. That was a required field. I could add people. If I wanted somebody else to have this as a task, I could click on Add Edit People and say, for instance, where is it, Jeff Grantee. Oh, I guess I can't. Yeah, only the grantee can do that, to add people here. If I was a grantee, I could go and add other people that might want to have this as a task. Progress reports, that's related to contracts if you ever have a contract. So let's go back to the Forms menu. I can hover on it and look at it, or just click on it and see the whole Forms menu. Okay, so a couple things we can see here. Contract document properties. This is nothing you have to do. It just shows if you were to receive a contract, what documents would make up a contract. It's made from the master grant contract and also the attachment A1, which is the DEC or program specific terms and conditions. And any other attachments would be down here. You can see we have none. So if you wanted to familiarize yourself with what would I be signing if I got a contract, you could look here. Obviously, it has nothing to do with our application, though, so that's right here, contract document properties. Later on, we could print the application. No need to do it now. Full version of the RFP, if you want to click and get that RFP or RFA again, you can click on that. And then application versions, once we submit our application, a PDF will be uploaded here that actually would be used by DEC to review our application, and you could see, your application in totality. All right, so the part where you have to start actually filling out information is right here under Project Site Addresses. And we'll click here, and this is, as the name implies, where the project will be run. So we'll call this, I don't know what to call it. We'll just say Jeff's Green Jobs Training. And the address, I don't know any addresses in Brooklyn, so I'll just do 123 Main Street, Brooklyn. What is that in? Is it in New York County? I don't even know. Probably not, but I'll write New York. And I have no, oh, it's in Kings, okay? And I don't know what a zip is. I'll just say 12345. All right, so this is where the training will be located. Regional council, you can see, is not required. We don't have to pick it, but you can. That's your regional development council. But of course, we know it's in New York City because you're all doing this in Brooklyn. But what is important is that agency-specific region, which are those districts. So you've gone through the RFA, you've looked at the district, and you've said, yep, I am in, let's say Tremaine Rights District in 56. So I click on that, and I've selected that. So now you just have to hit save. You can see the save button up in the top, although it's hiding it with this button. I don't know if you can see that button. But I've saved it, and it said, it gives me the green light, information has been saved. If you forget to put something in a required field, like the name, and you hit save, it will give you an error. Project name description is a required field. So I can't submit my application until I fix that problem. It saved everything else, I don't lose it, but it's never going to let me submit my application unless all these errors are taken care of. So I see, oh yeah, I forgot that, I'll hit save, and it got rid of the error. Now if I wanted to, I could add a second address. You can see add right here, and that's true within the budget and other places too. Whenever you see the add button, you can add a second or another of the thing you're working on. So maybe I have two facilities, and I want to show you the two different locations where we're doing the training. And I would fill that out and hit save. So I'm going to just go back there. I don't need to for this one. So I've added my one address. I can move on. You can hover over the Forms menu and get to program-specific questions, which is the next item, or you can click back on Forms menu and go down to it as well. So these are all the questions you're being asked to answer. And my suggestion is that you go through these and maybe work them up on a Word document or something like that. You know, spell check them, make sure they look right, and you can copy and paste them into here. So you can see many of the questions, some have uploads, some have text boxes that you can fill out. So you're going to want to, you know, some of them have pretty lengthy answers, or could have, up to 4,000 characters. So you want to make sure that you answer your questions properly. So you can print out this page. The questions are also alluded to in the RFA, and you can formulate your answers and then come back in here and copy and paste them. I wouldn't type them in here freehand just because it gets tedious, and I'll show you in a minute what I mean. So project title, I don't know, I'll just call it Jeff's Green Jobs Training. Now the first question may not be true at the moment you're doing this, so maybe I would even skip it until the end, because what if you start working on this today and then it gets to be July 15th or July 10th and you come back and you're like, oh wait, I forgot to answer this, so it's a good thing because I didn't get pre-qualified yet. So this one is asking you, are you pre-qualified? Obviously, eventually you're going to hit yes on it. I'm going to leave that as a blank right now. I'm not going to go through all these questions. It's up to you to read them, understand them, and answer them appropriately. I'm just showing you how to answer questions. Some of them you can see have text and also allow for uploads. So you can see the difference. There's a red asterisk here. That's a required question. So the question is required. The upload is available, but not required if I don't. So if I have something here, this is my fiscal sponsor agreement, and if I have one, I can click on Browse and find something to attach and attach it. Once I hit Save, it'll attach it there. All right, so we'll go through and answer questions. And we've got another one. Do more than 50% of the community-based organization members or the people served by your organization live in the affected community? Yes. Now, this one is a required question. Upload the declaration document here. It can be downloaded from the pre-submission uploads page. Okay, so there's another page you have to go to to get a form to fill out, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. So I'm going to leave that blank for now, and we'll get an error on it because it's going to say, wait a minute, you need an upload here and you haven't done that yet. Okay, so here's a question about demographics. Describe your training program. Describe your plan for placement retention, recruitment and screening, program effectiveness, how you're going to gauge how well you've done with the training program, your methods and curricula, your timeline. So it's a 24-minute project, but let's see your timeline. How long does it take you to do this? And some of the basic or main milestones of the project. Any partnerships that you have. So actually, number 10, you can see also required an upload. So I'm going to go and attach my timeline. So remember, I can hit save periodically. It'll give me a bunch of errors because I haven't finished 1 and then 12 and so on. However, it saves what I've done and allows me to come back later. This is why I say it's important to maybe do it in a Word doc or something like that. You've got 4,000 characters here, and as you keep typing, you can see it only shows me 3 lines of text. And it's obviously going to be hard to read what you've written if you do that. So write it in Word, copy and paste it into here. You can use bullet points. It doesn't retain bolding or headers or things like that, but paragraph spaces and bullet points it does retain. Now, remember I hit save and I had attached a file? Well, here's view file showing me that the thing that I've attached here for number 10 is right here, and I can click on it. Oops. Oh, this was only 500 characters, not 4,000. All right. I can click on view file and see what I've uploaded. And it just says sample attachment, and you can say, oh yeah, that's right, that's the thing I meant to upload for question number 10. So you should double check what you've uploaded to make sure you put the right thing in the right field. All right, so I'm going to go and answer some more questions here. Okay, and complete application. Are the program questions complete? It's just kind of a double check to make sure you're saying, yep, I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm going to hit save because it's not really complete yet. All right, so I didn't do number 1 yet because I'm not pre-qualified yet, or I don't want to answer that yet. I forgot to answer question number 16. I forgot an upload for 3A, and I forgot an upload for 3D. So 3A, that was the, this is a location. So provide the location and upload a map or other authoritative documentation. So here's my map, and I'll save that. What was the other one that needed 3D? So the declaration document. I don't have it yet because I didn't download it, so I'll skip that for now. All right, so I've added my map, let's say, but I still have these 3 errors that I'll take care of eventually. So let's go back to the Forms menu. It was talking about uploads here in the pre-submission uploads. So I'm just going to go in order, so we'll get to that in a little while. We're going to go next onto the budget, but you can see it's reminding me that I have errors here in program-specific questions, and if I was to do something like, for instance, check global errors or management tools, check for errors, it would show me those pages that I've missed information, especially the program-specific questions. All right, so we're going to go to my budget now, and I'm using very round numbers just to make it easy to write it out. So I've got some categories to fill out. I've got some personal services. I've got someone's salary. I've got some contractual and equipment. You can see there's different categories. Personal services salary, personal services fringe, contractual, travel, equipment, and other expenses. So I'm going to fill out some of these. I'll start with salary. All right, so Rosa, you can jump in if there's details that I'm not providing that I should. But let's say I have someone, a project manager, to do this. All right, and you might want to, sometimes the state agencies want you to put in the person's name or initials or something like that. So that's their name, their position and title, and their role responsibility, you know, developing and managing, you know, blah, blah, blah. details about what they're doing, and then, or not necessarily details, but a little more information. How many people are in that title? That'll be one person. And then you have to fill out the amount you're asking for. What it does ask, though, is to annualize their salary. And that's a little different here because you're asking for 2 years, so the math will be a little different, and I'll show you how. So I'm going to use easy round numbers. So I'm going to ask for $36,000, right? So that means this person is, let's say it's for the full 2 years, from November 2nd, 2018 through November 1st, 2020. So it's 2 years. And let's say that means he or she's going to have $36,000 over the 2 years, which obviously is $18,000 over 1 year. So let's say they make $100,000 a year. They work 40 hours a week, but we're only funding them 18% for 24 months. So that works out to 18% of $100,000 is $18,000 times 2 years or 24 months is $36,000. That's how I did the math there. So the system doesn't do the math for you. You need to figure that out. It's pretty easy if you know what they have. If they have a yearly salary, you can do that. If they don't have a yearly salary, and this is maybe a special project or something, you would have to annualize that salary. You know, if they made this much in a year, how much would it be? So 18% of it is $36,000, so 100% of it would have been $100,000. Or 18% of it obviously is $18,000 for 1 year. All right, so I'll hit save. And I've saved that. And you can see I can now click on add if I would like and add a second person. I don't have anyone in mind in my test thing here, so I'm not going to do it. But if you were to add it, you'd be able to toggle back and forth between them if you had more than one. So I have something else we'll do that I'll use the add button for later. All right, so that was personal services salary. And if I scroll back down here, you can see every section has its own narrative section as well. So if you were assigned, if you're awarded a contract, this wouldn't be part of the contract, but this is for you to explain what's going on with this. And especially since we have annualized salaries and over 2 years, it might be good to explain. So here is the explanation. You know, what they're doing, where the costs come from, that kind of thing. And you'll hit save. Okay, so I put in the narrative and the entry for salary. Now the next thing in personal services, if you had some, you could put in for fringe. If we go back to the RFP, it talks about fringe and what's allowed though. If we go back to the table of contents, back down to eligible and ineligible expenditures, fringe benefits. It says fringe benefits are allowed here, but only up to 15% of the staff's salary and can't exceed 30% of the total grant award. So I did the math already, and I'm going to put in for, actually, did I do the math right? Hold on. Now that I'm thinking. What did I say, 15%? Yes, I did it right. Okay, so I'll say fringe. And what it really does is it, sometimes it wants you to, or sometimes we suggest put in the percentage rate. So I don't know what it is. I do know what it is, but mine's kind of a made-up number. So you can put that in there. And you can put in, you know, for justification, something like benefits, or let's go this. You know, whatever you're putting in there, what this is covering. And all it's asking you for is the total amount. So mine is going to be $5,400, and I'll hit save. Now, if you were to do the math, $5,400 is not more than 15% of 36,000. That would be actually 5,700. So it's within that 15% threshold there. So I'm not more than 15%, I'm less than it. It's not going to do the math for you though, you should have done the math. All right, so that's fringe. And same thing with fringe. You can see I'm hovering now and getting to the menu. You have a narrative as well. And here is the fringe narrative. And you'll explain where the calculation comes from and all that information. Okay, back to the forms menu. So I've got a couple other things. I'm going to do some contractual. So I'll go to contractual. And these are description, justification, and amount. So this one will say, if I can spell it right, curriculum development. Maybe the name of the company you're hiring. What are they doing is the justification. And let's say this one is $4,000. Okay, if I go back to the forms menu, so another part of contractual I can do, I could have stayed there, but I just wanted to double check something and there wasn't. Something I was wondering if it was there or not. So I'm going to add another contractual. So I did one. I can click on add, get a blank contractual page, and this is going to be classroom rental. Maybe the location. And the justification, and this one will be $3,600. And I'll hit save. So now that I've entered two things, there's a little drop down here. I can go back and forth between the two items to edit them or even delete them if I wanted to, or to just kind of double check them. So I've done that. I go back to the forms menu, and I've got two items in contractual, and I should probably fill out the narrative. Okay, I've done that. Hit save. And I'll do one more item. I'll go to forms menu, and I'll go to equipment, and I don't know what to call it, so I'll just say training equipment. Here's the justification, and we are purchasing it for, let's say, $1,000. Obviously, your descriptions and titles will be more descriptive than that. Okay, so I've probably already worked on this budget. I've done it on a spreadsheet or something, and I know what I'm filling out. And if I go back to the forms menu, I can go down to expenditure summary in the budget section, and you can see what it adds up to. And in my case, like I said, I was using nice round numbers. It adds up to $50,000. It's not going to give you an error if you go over. So if I went to forms menu, and let's say my equipment was $2,000, and hit save. If I go back and look at my expenditure summary, now I'm over the limit. I'm at $51,000. Remember, the grants are only for $25,000 to $50,000 total over the 2 years. So it's not going to warn me. It's going to let me submit it this way, but this is a problem. So don't get yourself into this situation. I don't know what DEC would do, if they would disqualify you, or if they would just say, well, we'll approve it, but we'll have to, tweak it to get it down to $50,000. I'm not sure what they'll do. Just don't put yourself in that position. Make sure you're less than 20, but make sure you're more than 25,000 and less than 50,000. Let me go back to equipment and fix that. Same thing with the calculations. It doesn't know what's right. We're leaving it up to you to know what's right and to be able to do the math. Okay, so I've filled out my budget. It adds up to $50,000. I'm asking for the max amount, and we'll move on to the next section. Now, the next section is the work plan. But if you remember in the RFA and in the program-specific questions, actually, it says there's actually a form for you to help you fill out the work plan. So let's not even bother with that yet. Let's go to pre-submission uploads and see what that form is. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items here. So we're going to have to fill this out, the Smart Growth Assessment form. We're going to have this work plan worksheet, which I was just talking about. Remember, one of the questions was the municipal endorsement, a letter of agreement, template, and then declaration. So it must be completed and uploaded to question 3D. Okay? So these are documents that we need to fill out and provide in certain places in our application. So let's go, we were talking about work plan, but let's start with a Smart Growth Assessment form. So this actually needs to be uploaded here, and I want to point something out important. The form that's here, if we click on Document Template, and you get the form here, and you could open it. The problem with the form that was provided here is it doesn't let you fill it out. It's all just a flat PDF file. So they've addressed that, and DEC will have a link to a better, the proper form, and I just happen to have it, so I'm going to open it up, and it'll look like this. So there's some yes-no type questions and your answers. Okay, so I'm not reading it. It's up to you to do it. But you would just fill out the form here. You can see it's 4 pages. So I'm going to give you all the details of it. Another form you should read and understand and fill it out. And then you would just do File, Save As, and let's say I'm saving it as my updated questionnaire. And now I can go back to my application. Where am I? Right here. And upload my assessment form. I'll go to Browse, and where was it? And I'll upload it there. It's not uploaded until I hit the Save button. When I hit Save, it shows me that I've saved it. You can see that View File, just like we had in the program-specific questions. The other ones are not required. Why? Because they're not uploads that are required here. They certainly are required, though, in the program-specific questions. So before I get to the work plan, we'll go to the next thing, the endorsement. So if I wanted a template of an endorsement, I could click on this, and I can fill it out. You know, it's just a sample endorsement if you wanted a template for board, municipality to use, make it a little easier instead of you having to come up with something on your own. Okay, that was that. Letter of agreement, another form. Again, it's up to you to download it, fill it out, and then declaration, same thing, download it, fill it out. So this one goes to attachment 3D, and the letter of agreement is only for grant award amounts of, so the letter of agreement is just showing you if it's a less than 10,000, I don't even know why it's here, because you're not doing less than 10,000, so you can ignore that. But the declaration you do need because that's part of 3D. So you would have downloaded it, filled it out, and then let's go back to our Forms menu and provide our uploads that we just had for, you can see, 3D and 16 I missed. So here's 3D. I'm attaching that. And what was in 16 again? 16, I'm not going to answer that yet. Let's just say I'm not done. All right? So that was, back to the Forms menu, that was the pre-submission uploads. Templates are provided for me, and the one form that I have to download and submit here is that Smart Growth Assessment form, but the link is bad here. We'll give you a better link to that other document that I used. So the last thing that's left here is my work plan. You can see it's 2 sections, the work plan overview form and the objectives, which will end up being the objectives, task, performance measures. So the overview form is information about what my project is going to be. So we know the work plan period is going to be 11/2/2018 to 11/1/2020, and your project summary. High-level overview of the project, including overall goal, desired outcomes, include information such as location, target population, overall number of persons to be served, you know, the details of your project. What are you going to be doing? It doesn't have to be crazy, you know, really verbose, really a lot of text, but it does have to be detailed. It has to, give this information so we know what's going on. So I'm going to do, here is my project, and just paste a bunch of information. So, this is only 816 characters. You don't have to do 50,000 characters, but there's a lot of room. Again, I suggest you write it in Word or something like that. Spell check it, make sure it looks good, copy and paste it. The other thing is organizational capacity, and these are both DEC required fields. Organizational capacity is prove to us or tell us how your organization actually will be able to fulfill this project, the project goals here. If you've never done any training before, you've never dealt with green jobs, you've never worked in Brooklyn or something like that, it might not be the thing for you. So we'll hit save here. So I've saved that page. Both those sections that are required were filled out. Now we can move on to the objectives, task, performance measures. So before I do, though, I wanted to point out that template. So we go back to the pre-submission uploads. There is the work plan worksheet. And I'm going to open it up. And it's just a Word doc that has the name, the period. You could write in your overview if you wanted to. And then the second page starts with your objectives. You can ignore budget category, tasks, and performance measures. So you're not limited to one objective, one task, 3 performance measures. You can have any number that you want. You can have one or many objectives, one or many tasks, and each task can have one or many performance measures. So think of objective as kind of the high-level goal, maybe the big milestone. The tasks are the sub-tasks or the sub-projects that will get you to that milestone. And the performance measures are ways to measure how you've done it. So maybe you need to contract with somebody for the facility. Maybe that's an objective task performance measure. Maybe you need to develop curriculum. So your objective could be develop curriculum. And a task could be, first of all, contract with a developer or something like that, or develop first draft. And maybe performance measure would be first draft, available or complete by, let's say 12/1/2018, something like that. And then you go through the different milestones of getting these things done. So the idea is when you're done, you've spelled out what your project is with high-level goals, the tasks to get to those goals, and the performance measures of how you can measure it. So performance measures could be dates, could be number of people, could be, doesn't even have to be something quantifiable. It could be just text, but you do need at least one of each, and preferably you're going to need several more than just one of each. So let's say you filled that out, and you now go back to the gateway, and you can start entering in your work plan. So we'll go to Forms menu, and Objectives, and I'll start with Curriculum Development. And we'll hit Save. Now this is the only part of the Forms menu where to get to the next part of it, you can't click on the Forms menu. You have to hover and then go down to the next part, which is Tasks. So I filled out my objective name. If you wanted to, you could fill out a description. You can see it's not required, but if you wanted to, you could do that. Hit Save. And now if you go to Forms menu, hover, and click Tasks. All right, so this is a task related to curriculum development. So we'll just call this develop XYZ curriculum. And again, description is not required, but maybe you have one. And we'll hit Save. And if we hover over Performance menu, you go to Performance Measures. So my objective is curriculum development. My task is develop XYZ curriculum, and I'll say first draft. And we'll say first draft available, or let's say complete by 12/1/2018. And we'll hit save. So I've done one objective, one task, one performance measure. I could now click Add if I want to, and add a second performance measure for XYZ curriculum. Let's say XYZ so it's complete, and let's say complete by 1/15/2019, and then we'll hit save. So it does allow you to upload something here in your performance measures. If you want an example or something like that, you can do that. But you can see now what I've done is one objective, one task, and that one task has two performance measures, first draft and then when it's complete. I could go back to Forms menu. Let's say I go back to Tasks. I could click Add and add another task under Curriculum Development. Or I could go back to Forms menu and back to Objectives and add another high-level objective by clicking the Add button. So the result is kind of a tree that would look like this, your worksheet. An objective, a number of tasks, a number of performance measures. Another objective, a number of tasks, and a number of performance measures. So that's what that would look like. You can transfer it over from here or just use this to help you kind of combine your thoughts. All right, so I'm only going to do the one, but I think you get the point of how to do it working through the Forms menu. All right, so we're pretty much done. I know there's an error here in my program-specific questions. I'm going to ignore it. Let's pretend we don't see it. But I feel like I'm done. I've gone through everything else. The last thing here, just in case, is called the Grantee document folder. And in here it allows you to upload anything else you need to. We don't really want you to use this unless there's something that's really required. You know, we don't need super long applications, and we don't need you to provide so much information. But if you do have something that needed to be added, you can just fill out the description, browse for it, and hit save. Okay? But I'm not going to do that. And the last thing is I want to maybe double check my application before I submit it. Now you had attachments. You had to attach some things in the program-specific questions. You had to attach some things in the pre-submission uploads. You have to click that View File to see and double check what you've attached. But if you want to see everything else, you can do this Print Application. So that was in the main Forms menu, Print Application, and it allows you to print it, save it as a PDF or something, or just look at it. So this is everything, all those pages we've gone through in order. So we can see the answers. Some of them I didn't have an answer, I just had an upload. Here's a yes and an upload. So again, the upload is there, but you would have had to go in and click View File to double check it. We can see here's my answer. You know, a lot of answers. This was a longer answer here. My salary, so my budget comes next. Salary, there's that $36,000. Fringe, there's the $5,400. My contractual, there was one item here and another item here. I had no travel, and I had $1,000 in equipment. Nothing in other. And then finally, there's that summary that we've seen before that adds up to $50,000. Work plan, so my summary, my organizational capacity, and my objective, my tasks, and my performance measures, the two performance measures here. And then uploads, again, it tells me that I have an upload. It just doesn't let me click on what I've uploaded. I have to go back into that to see it. But this is just a way of you seeing basically the text that you provided, and does it all look good or does it all look complete? You would hate to submit something where you copy and pasted something and you realize that you chopped up the last sentence. So it's a good thing here just to kind of double check that what's here is what you intended. All right, now again, I'm going to ignore the fact that I have errors and I'm going to try to submit my application. So to submit it, you just go to status change and application submitted. And it says, wait a minute, you missed two things, question number 1 and question number 16. So I can click right on it and say, oh yeah, I forgot these things here. So pre-qualification, you know, a reminder, yep, we are pre-qualified. In the last few weeks, we've worked on it, everything is good, and I know I'm in the status of pre-qualified. So I can answer that one with a yes. And then the last question was 16, all questions complete, have you checked to make sure all required uploads are complete and viewable? Incomplete application will be disqualified. So yes, they're complete. I made sure that I didn't leave off text that I copied and pasted. It's all there. I double checked all my attachments. Yep, they're all there. The ones that I intended are in the right fields. So I can go ahead and hit yes for that. Now I think I'm done, and I can go to status change and submit my application. So did a quick check and found that there were no errors, and I can now agree here. It's basically saying I am who I say I am. I'm allowed to submit on behalf of my organization, and I can click on I agree. And it's now submitted my application. So how do I know it's been submitted? A couple of ways. Number one, you'll get an email in a few minutes, and it'll say, congratulations, your application was submitted. Number two, you might remember before we were in the status of application in process. Well, now it's in the status of assignment of reviewers, meaning it's been sent to the DEC, and they're going to assign reviewers to look at your application once the due date passes. And another way, remember I had a task before on my home page, and there's no more tasks anymore. I don't have it anymore. But that doesn't mean I can't access the application. Again, I can always go back to applications and search for it based on name or number, find it, and get back and access it. And one thing, the last thing I want to point out here, hasn't happened yet, but in a few minutes, there'll be a PDF here under application versions. And this will allow me to view the entire PDF of everything I've included, including the attachments, just to see my whole application. And again, that's the document that DEC will be looking at to review your application. So we'll check back on that in a few minutes and see what that looks like. The last thing is you've submitted your application. You want to look at what they're seeing. And that's here. It's in the forms menu. Like I said, it's 5 or 10 minutes after you submit it. And you click on application versions, and you can see a PDF, a link to the PDF that you've submitted. So what it did was it took all those documents together, all your answers, put them into one nice, easy-to-read document. You can see mine happens to be 28 pages. We've got the name of my organization, my application number, when I submitted it, the amount that I requested, who submitted it and who signed for it. Page 3 is the project site addresses that we talked about. Page 4 is where the answers to my program-specific questions are. So yes, no, some answers, and uploads. So you know I have an upload. It's not here, but when I scroll down a few pages, after these program-specific questions, there'll be this first upload, a second one, a third one, a fourth, and here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So your attachments will be there too. Then we get into your budget, same stuff we saw already. Scrolling through the budget. Your work plan, the overview form. My objective, task, performance measures. Here's that organizational capacity field. And then the other attachments that I provided. The Smart Growth Assessment form. I think that was probably it. Yep. So that's the total of my application. That's what the DEC will be looking at. And that, again, was found here in Forms menu under Application Versions.